Chapter 1471. In this vast house, the commotion caused by Qing Menjing was like a pebble thrown into the sea. It only caused a slight ripple and quickly disappeared without a trace. At the same time, in the center of the residence, in the most grandiose room, the young master was sitting opposite an old man with a frown on his face. There were 2 cups of steaming hot tea on the table, and the 2 of them seemed to be discussing something. The old man looked rather old. Not only was his sideburns white, but there were also many silver strands in his hair. However, his body was very straight, and his eyes were emitting waves of light. From time to time, there would be a soul-stirring look in his eyes. The hand that was holding the teacup was still steady and strong, and it did not tremble at all. If I remember correctly, you should have been staying in the headquarters in Yaoxian Prefecture. Why did you suddenly come here? The old man put down the teacup in his hand, raised his head, and stared sharply into the young master's eyes as he asked expressionlessly. This old man was the young master's father, who was also the great master of the entire bandit group. The mountain bandits that were wreaking havoc in Lucian Prefecture and the arrogant horse bandits in Bashin Prefecture were all subordinates of this group. Their power was almost everywhere in the entire immortal cultivation world. As he rarely showed his face, the great master had always been a very mysterious figure. Apart from a few important figures, no one else knew what he looked like. They only knew that he was an existence that people looked up to. Father, I was forced to come here to seek refuge. I was really forced to do so. I have nowhere to go. The young master seemed to be a little afraid of the great master. He lowered his head and answered gloomily. Usually, in the headquarters, it was the young master who dealt with matters. The big master rarely gave any instructions. Now that he had lost the headquarters and left in defeat, the young master was actually very nervous in his heart. He was afraid that his father would reprimand him in anger. However, if he did not report it, his father would definitely be even angrier. So, after thinking about it, the young master chose to come over and tell the truth. Perhaps he could gain some sympathy. What happened? The great master's expression became even more unhappy. He knocked on the table and asked, "Such a big headquarters was left for you. Why do you have nowhere to go?" "It's all because of those troublemakers." The young master waved his fist fiercely and gritted his teeth as he said, "If that little brat Shaochen hadn't destroyed the mountain bandits' hideout in Lucian County and the headquarters in Yaoxian County, and the horse bandits' power had been destroyed by that little girl, Qing Menjing, I wouldn't have fled back here in such a hurry." "What? Even that Nangong guy failed? Looks like this brat Shaochen really has some skills." The great leader was slightly stunned and looked a little surprised. "That's right. Fortunately, I placed my eyes outside in advance, so he didn't catch me red-handed." The young master's expression was a little distorted as he said fiercely, "Fortunately, I caught that little girl, Qing Menjing. When I have some free time later, I will definitely torture her and take revenge on her." The great leader was slightly surprised, but his expression quickly turned cold. When he heard the young master's words, he reprimanded him in a deep voice, "Don't think about such nonsense. We have too many things to do. How can we have so much time to play around with a little girl?" "Yes, I know my mistake. Please forgive me, father." The young master quivered and immediately lowered his head to admit his mistake. His back was drenched in cold sweat. The great leader nodded slightly and didn't reprimand him anymore. Instead, he asked indifferently, "Have you dealt with the horse bandits' headquarters? Although this is only a large branch, you should know that all the important research is carried out in this place. If Shaochen finds traces of this place, the consequences will be unimaginable. You can rest assured about this. I have already asked people to destroy all the relevant information. All the subordinates have also been transferred here with me this time. No matter what, Shaochen will not be able to find the location of this branch." The young master immediately nodded and guaranteed confidently, "That's good. Don't worry about it too much. I have other things for you later." The great leader's expression softened slightly as he instructed indifferently, "Thank you for your understanding, father. I will remember your teachings." The young master bowed respectfully. He hesitated for a moment and asked again, that. Father, may I ask if we should send more masters to get rid of Xiao Chen? Xiao Chen, this brat. The great leader's vigorous and powerful fingers knocked on the table a few times. He murmured with a somewhat dignified expression, as far as I know, Elder Nangong is already at the peak of the mysterious ascension stage. I didn't expect that even he, yes. I don't know what kind of luck Xiao Chen has. His cultivation actually improved so fast. The young master continued the conversation and sighed sincerely. I guess we can only send mountain opening stage masters over this time. By the way, we should also clean up the Burning Sky faction. Those bandits took away all the storage in our mountain bandits' hiding place. We can take them back to make up for our recent losses. From the young master's point of view, now that the horse bandits and mountain bandits could no longer be dispatched, their income would definitely decrease a lot. Therefore, they had to take back all the resources from before. He had completely forgotten that those spirit crystals and heavenly treasures were also snatched from others. However, to the young master's surprise, the great leader did not immediately agree to his suggestion. Instead, he rubbed his temples and pondered for a while. Then, he slowly shook his head and said, "What you said. I'm afraid it won't work for the time being." The young master was stunned. Before he could ask, the great leader explained, "It's not that easy to invite mountain opening stage masters. There are only a few of them in the entire immortal cultivation world. If we want to invite them, we will definitely have to pay a huge price. Moreover, our main focus is on collecting spirit crystals now. It's impossible to spend a lot of effort to deal with Xiao Chen's group. But, if we keep Xiao Chen alive, it will definitely be a big problem. He is already in mountain opening stage master now. If we don't get rid of him as soon as possible, I reckon there will be endless troubles in the future," the young master said with a face full of worry. The young master's heart was filled with hatred towards Xiao Chen. He couldn't wait to get rid of this fellow immediately. Even in his dreams, he wished that he could kill him. However, he had no way to deal with it now. Although the young master's organization was very large in scale and usually had sufficient connections and resources, what the organization lacked the most was a powerful immortal cultivator expert. Chapter 1472. Usually, if there was anything that required the help of high-level cultivators, their organization could only rely on their accumulated relationships and ask the experts of various sects to help them. They even had to pay a huge amount of spiritual crystals. Therefore, if they encountered a person like Xiao Chen who was not weak and was a thorn in their side, they would also have a headache. If they could, they would recruit those who could and try their best to avoid conflict. Get rid of him, we definitely have to get rid of him. I also want to get rid of him, but not now. The great master could naturally understand the resentment in the young master's heart, but he still warned him sternly. Seeing that the young master still could not accept it, the great master sighed and added, "You don't have to be too anxious. As long as we get that material and accomplish that big thing, we will have a very powerful voice in the immortal cultivation world. When that time comes, it won't be us asking the experts of other sects to come out and help us. Instead, it will be the sects who will rush to please us and beg us to do things for them. Father, I think you better reconsider." The young master wanted to continue arguing, but before he could finish his sentence, the door to the room was suddenly pushed open. Both of them turned to look, only to see an old man in his 60s with a face as red as dates and eyes as large as copper bells walking in. He bowed to the first master and reporting to the first master, "I've found a suitable cultivator candidate. I've just checked her thoroughly, and there's nothing wrong with her indicators. She's just right to go to that place to carry out the mission." "Very good. It was the right decision to leave this matter to you. There are results so quickly." The great master's expression softened a little when he heard this, and he nodded in satisfaction. This old man in his 60s was the second master of this organization. He was usually in charge of trivial chores and daily communication with various sections. Occasionally, he would also help the great master with some important tasks. "Thank you for your praise, great master, that." The second master first accepted the praise with a smile, then his expression changed and he stammered a little awkwardly. What's wrong? Did you encounter some problems? The great leader glanced at the second leader, waved his hand and said, "If you have any questions, feel free to speak. Right now, the most important thing for our organization is to focus on obtaining that material. Everything else can be put aside for now. It's like this. Although this EAN cultivator meets the requirements in all aspects, her EAN cultivation level is very low. She hasn't even started cultivating. She hasn't even entered the chi refinement stage yet. If we just go there rashly." The second leader shook his head. He didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was already very clear. The great master pondered for a while, then said with a frown, "Theoretically speaking, the poisonous gas in that place should be ineffective against EAN cultivators. Wasn't that the reason we were looking for EAN cultivators back then?" "That's not what I meant." The second in charge hurriedly explained, "The poisonous gas may be ineffective against her, but with her insignificant strength, what if there are other dangers inside? Moreover, if you were to encounter other competitors, you might be beaten to the ground in a single move." "Other competitors?" "Sure enough, there are still others who want that material." The great leader raised his eyebrows, stared at the second leader, and asked, "Have you found out who the other party is?" Hearing that someone else was also going to take action, the great leader's expression was not surprised at all. After all, everyone would covet a good treasure. If the material wasn't hidden in an extremely dangerous and unpredictable place, perhaps all the major sects would have been fighting for it. According to reliable information from my subordinates, the Huanshan Pavilion has also found a suitable candidate recently. However, I don't know why they haven't taken action to capture that person. I don't know what they are waiting for." The second in charge touched his nose and said firmly, "So I think we must take advantage of this opportunity to get there first, lest they get the first prize." "The Huanshan Pavilion," the great leader repeated with a somewhat solemn expression. His fingers lightly tapped on the table, as if he was thinking about something. The second in charge waited for a while. Seeing that the great leader didn't move, his expression suddenly changed, and he put on a gloomy face. He said in a gloomy tone, "How about, we secretly send someone to the Huanshan Pavilion to find out who the person they are targeting is, and then follow the clues to kill the suitable candidate first." "Nonsense. Are you born in the year of the dog? How can you change your mind so easily?" The great leader immediately glared at the second leader and berated him mercilessly. "The Huanshan Pavilion is the #1 sect in the immortal cultivation world. Their strength and foundation are extremely deep. How can the current shake them? If the other party counterattacks with full force, we won't get any advantage either. Maybe both sides will have to fight to the death. At that time, won't we be a joke to other sects for nothing?" "Heh, great leader, please don't be angry. I was just saying it casually. Just treat it as a gust of wind blowing past your ear and listen to it. If you feel that what I said is wrong, please don't take it to heart." After being scolded, the second in charge immediately put away his gloomy expression and put on an embarrassed smile as he spoke awkwardly. When the young master saw this scene, he couldn't help but feel angry and amused. He thought to himself that the second in charge was indeed a dog-faced person. He changed his expression faster than flipping a book. It was a waste for him to grow so old and be so shameless. It would be a pity if he didn't become an actor. The first leader was a little speechless as he unhappily glanced at the second leader. After pondering for a while, he finally opened his mouth and said, "How about this? Make a trip to the medicine room later and take out all of our precious pills that can raise one's cultivation level. Properly raise that EAN cultivator's strength. Take out all of them for her to use?" The second in charge was stunned. He suspected that there was something wrong with his ears and confirmed again. "Yes, as long as it's a high-grade pill that can raise cultivation, give it to her. Remember, you must raise her cultivation level as soon as possible, no matter the cost. Let her have enough strength to go to that place, and let her live safely in there." The boss nodded his head and instructed in an extremely serious manner. It was clear that this matter was extremely important to him. Okay, then I will do it immediately. Wait for my good news." The second in charge cupped his hands and accepted the order. He excused himself to the young master and immediately turned to leave. On the left side of the house, in a large messy room, Nye Xiaoyu was sitting on a chair anxiously. The chair was cushioned comfortably, but Nye Xiaoyu wasn't in the mood to enjoy it at all. At this moment, her mind was blank. She didn't know what kind of fate she would face. Chapter 1473. Nye Xiaoyu couldn't figure out why these people suddenly kidnapped her. She had been tied up here for a few days and nights. Other than doing some inexplicable tests on her and asking some strange questions, they didn't talk to her anymore. Even if she tried to ask questions, no one answered her. Now all the guards had left the room, and she was the only one left in the room, or rather, she was the only dead person left. Just when Nye Xiaoyu was at a loss of what to do, the door suddenly opened, and second master walked into the room quickly. He quickly moved a chair from the side and sat in front of Nye Xiaoyu. After looking at her for a while, he said, "Your name is Nye Xiaoyu, right? Just now, through our inspection, we confirmed that you are a genuine yin cultivator. Although I have indeed heard of the existence of people like you. I don't know if you are still considered a human, but it is still quite rare in the immortal cultivation world. I am indeed a nether cultivator, but I have never harmed anyone. Why did you capture me?" Nye Xiaoyu was a little flustered. She bit her lower lip and asked cautiously. "Harm anyone? That's not the point. It doesn't matter even if you are a great bandit or a homicidal maniac. We captured you this time because you are of some use." Second master shook his legs and said lightly. Use? Nye Xiaoyu blinked her eyes in confusion and said uncertainly, "No one has ever said that I have value. Are you mistaken? I am not a master. I said you have value, so you have value." Second master waved his hand impatiently, stared at Nye Xiaoyu, and said straightforwardly, "You just said that you are not a master, but I can help you become one. In exchange, you have to promise us one thing. What do you think? Help me become a master?" Nye Xiaoyu was even more confused. She asked with a puzzled face, Didn't you just say that you have never seen a nether cultivator? How do you know how to improve the strength of a nether cultivator?" No, it's not to improve the strength of a nether cultivator." Second master raised a finger, shook it, and said slowly, "I can help you improve your internal strength to a higher level, so that you can look down upon many people in the cultivation world. Correspondingly, after the improvement, you have to do something for us." Internal strength? What was that? I've never heard of it before. Nye Xiaoyu's mind was filled with question marks. She was completely confused by the term that the red-faced old man had mentioned. What? You haven't even heard of internal strength? Internal strength was the division of cultivation in the cultivation world. They are divided into qi refining, foundation establishment, gold core, and so on. The second in charge rolled his eyes at Nye Xiaoyu and snapped, "How do you usually cultivate? How could he not even know such a simple thing? Did he just come out from the deep mountains? What a waste." Nye Xiaoyu secretly curled her lips. She came from the secular world and didn't know much about the world of cultivators. Besides, she had been cultivating with old ghost Shishan all this time and basically didn't have access to high-level things. It was normal that she hadn't heard of them. Then, if I agree, what conditions do I have to agree to? Nye Xiaoyu collected her thoughts, looked at the second in charge, and asked coldly, "What are you going to do?" "You know, I'm just a zombie. To be precise, I'm a dead person, so it's impossible for me to do those things." Although Nye Xiaoyu's voice was always as cold as a pearl, there was a slight fluctuation in her tone at this time. Fortunately, she was already a zombie without any vital signs, so there was no blood flow in her body, and her face was always as pale as a piece of paper. Otherwise, the second in charge would see that Nye Xiaoyu's face was actually as red as a lantern. Because of what had happened during this period, Nye Xiaoyu subconsciously thought that she was going to be offered to a powerful man as a concubine, or sell her body in exchange for some benefits. What are those things? What do you mean? The second in charge was slightly stunned and didn't quite understand what Nye Xiaoyu was implying. No, nothing, I just want to know whether what I'm going to do will be dangerous. Nia Xiaoyu found that she seemed to have misunderstood the second in charge, so she shook her head quickly and asked in a different way. The second in charge didn't take it seriously. He nodded and said in a deep voice, "Of course there will be danger, but as long as you can successfully improve your internal strength to the nascent soul stage, and then carry out this task according to the way I told you, you should be able to keep your life and escape unscathed. If you can agree to this condition, I can even consider making an exception to let you join our Heaven and Earth Association." Heaven and Earth Association? Is that the name of your place? Nia Xiaoyu repeated it in puzzlement. Wasn't this Heaven and Earth Association the name of a sect in a novel in the secular world? Why did it appear in such a place? There was also that nascent soul stage. It sounded very powerful. Would he be able to break through to that stage? However, Nia Xiaoyu was still a little speechless at the second in charge's words. She was already a dead person, so why did he say, "Keep my life and escape unscathed"? It seemed that this guy in front of her didn't know what Yin cultivation was at all. That's right. The second in charge didn't know what Nia Xiaoyu was complaining about. Instead, he straightened his back proudly and said proudly, "Our Heaven and Earth Association is very powerful. We have branches everywhere in the world of cultivation, and we have powerful resources. If you choose to join our Heaven and Earth Association, you won't regret your decision today. Haven't you heard of this saying? If you don't know the Heaven and Earth Association, it will be in vain even if you become a mountain splitter." I see. Nia Xiaoyu hesitated for a while, then gritted her teeth and nodded in agreement. Okay, I agree. Nia Xiaoyu's thinking was very simple. She felt that since she and Li Xianer came to the world of cultivation, they had run into a wall many times. Because the people here only cared about cultivators and didn't care about demonic cultivators, and because their strength was very low, they were always bullied and didn't dare to fight back. Now that she had this opportunity to improve her strength, she might be able to win more respect from others in the future. Nia Xiaoyu had even planned to start looking for Li Xianer, Xiao Chen, and the others after her cultivation level increased. Chapter 1474. You're really straightforward. Well, come with me. Let's get some elixirs first. The second in charge gave Nia Xiaoyu a thumbs up, untied her, stood up, and walked out of the door. In the second in charge's view, since Nia Xiaoyu was already a member of Heaven and Earth Association, there was no need to tie her up. Besides, he had to supervise her cultivation at any time and any place in the future, so it was more reassuring to keep her by his side. After all, this matter was specially ordered by the leader, and no mistakes could be allowed. Wait a minute. Nia Xiaoyu suddenly thought of something and shouted hurriedly. What's wrong now? Are you going to go back on your word so soon? The second in charge turned his head and stared at her unhappily. No, I have an acquaintance who is also locked up in your cell. Can you release her as well? She is very smart, and maybe she can also cultivate with me and improve her strength. Nia Xiaoyu thought of Qing Menjing, who was still locked up, so she wanted to ask if she could help her. An acquaintance? You mean the little girl who was just locked up today? The second in charge frowned and asked. Yes, her name is Cheng. Just as Nia Xiaoyu was about to introduce her, she was interrupted by the second in command. No, she doesn't meet the requirements of our mission. Besides, I didn't catch her, so I can't let her out yet. Then why was she captured? Nia Xiaoyu was slightly taken aback and asked tentatively. That's not what you need to worry about now. The second in charge's face darkened, and he refused to answer Nia Xiaoyu's question. Looking at her disappointed face, he thought for a while and said, But you don't have to worry. Our Heaven and Earth Association still has rules for prisoners. As long as that little girl doesn't do anything out of line, we won't do anything to her. That's good. Please make an exception for my friend, Senior, and arrange it more appropriately for him. Nia Xiaoyu was a little helpless, but she had no choice but to give up. Otherwise, if she persisted, she might lose her chance as well. She had to wait until she became stronger and had more power to speak before rescuing Miss Qing Menjing. Nie Xiaoyu was a timid person, and she didn't dare to take the initiative to make requests. In addition, she had no experience in dealing with strangers, so she immediately gave in after being threatened by the second in charge. In fact, as long as she thought about it carefully or probed a little more, she would understand that the second head keeper actually valued her quite a lot. If she could take this opportunity to insist on some conditions that were not too harsh, the second head keeper would basically agree. Unfortunately, Nie Xiaoyu didn't realize this, so she missed this good opportunity to fight for benefits. Well, I see. I'll help you inform him. You don't need to call me senior. Just call me second in charge. Seeing that Nie Xiaoyu was obedient, the second in charge nodded with satisfaction. He took the lead to leave the room and walked in the direction of the pharmacy. When they arrived at the pharmacy, the second in charge took the lead to walk in. At first glance, he saw that the pharmacy manager was sleeping soundly with his head buried in the counter. The second in charge immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. Wasn't it obvious that he was humiliating himself? He simply lifted his leg and kicked the pharmacy manager to the ground. He shouted angrily, "Damn it, are you a pig? Are you here to look after the pharmacy or to sleep?" The pharmacy manager rolled on the ground after being kicked. Just when he was about to flare up, he heard the second master's roar. He immediately shivered in fear and stood up at the fastest speed in his life. He bowed his head and apologized. I'm sorry, second master. I've been busy for a whole day. I didn't pay attention. Okay. I don't have time to listen to your explanation. Hurry up and take out all the top-grade elixirs in our pharmacy." The second in charge waved his hand and interrupted the manager's explanation. The pharmacy manager became spirited and hurriedly asked for instructions respectfully. "Okay, no problem. What kind of elixirs do you need? Or you can just tell me the name of the elixirs and I'll help you find them right away." Although the steward also saw a young girl standing behind the second head, dressed in white and looking ghostly, at this time, the second head was angry, so the steward didn't dare to ask anything. He didn't even dare to look at her again. How would I know the name of any elixirs? In any case, take out all the high-grade medicinal pills that can quickly improve your cultivation without any side effects. Oh, that's right. Also, take out some high-grade healing medicinal pills. Put them all on my account. The second leader knocked on the counter with a heroic look and ordered loudly. Take them all out? The manager was shocked. After hesitating for a long time, he said weakly, Second in charge, the elixirs stored in this warehouse are the trump cards of our Heaven and Earth Association. If we take them out, we can sell them for tens of millions of spirit crystals. If you only want a few or a few kinds, I can still make the decision. But if you want to take them all at once, it's a bit difficult. I have to first ask for instructions from the great leader. Ask for instructions, my ass. Before the steward could finish his words, the second leader was furious. He swung his arm, raised his hand, and slapped the steward hard on the face. The slap made the steward spin on the spot. The great leader asked me to take these elixirs. The second in charge impatiently shouted. When he saw that the manager was still dizzy and didn't say anything, he glared at him and said, "What? You still don't believe me, boy? Why don't you take me with you and we go find the great leader to confront him?" "No. No need, second in charge, you're too serious. How could I dare not believe you?" The pharmacy manager was about to cry. In this short period of time, he had already been kicked and slapped. If he insisted on asking for instructions from the great leader, wouldn't he be beaten again? Then why don't you hurry up? I'm in a hurry here. I don't have time to waste with you. The second in charge roared again with full strength. Please wait for a moment, I'll go get the elixirs now. I'll be done right away. The manager responded with a sullen face. Then, he covered his red cheek with his left hand and took a big empty wooden box with his right hand. He walked to the shelf where the elixirs were placed and carefully identified the effects of the elixirs. Then, he put all the elixirs that the second-in-charge mentioned into the wooden box. Nye Xiaoyu, who was following behind the second-in-charge, was so surprised that she couldn't close her mouth. She secretly wondered how powerful this world was. Just these elixirs could be sold at such a high price? Don't tell me they're running a pharmacy. Chapter 1475. Nye Xiaoyu heard from the manager who had been beaten into a pig's head that the elixirs in this place could be sold for tens of millions of spirit crystals. Previously, she and Li Xiener had asked about the salary of the workers in the Chamber of Commerce of Immortal Cultivators, and the salary was at most a few spirit crystals a day. The difference was simply too big. Surprised and curious about the background of the Heaven-Earth Association, Nye Xiaoyu left the pharmacy with the second-in-charge. She took a lot of elixirs and moved into a suite. The second-in-charge first taught Nye Xiaoyu the basic situation of the world of cultivation and explained the division of strength. Then, he ordered her to cultivate in this room for the next few days and not to go out casually. If there was any situation or need, she should tell him in time, and he would find a way to solve it as soon as possible. The second-in-charge lived in the outer room, ready to monitor Nye Xiaoyu at all times and ensure her food and clothing. To put it bluntly, he was like Nye Xiaoyu's senior nanny. Although this kind of thing was very trivial, it was what the second-in-charge was used to doing. Since the great leader had ordered him to devote all his efforts to this matter, he would do his best to complete it. Nye Xiaoyu knew that the second-in-charge only lived in the outer room and would not come in to harass her, so she did not say anything more. She stayed in the room obediently and prepared to start cultivating. At this time, Nye Xiaoyu also had a belief in her heart. She wanted to raise her cultivation level as soon as possible so that she would have a greater say in the Heaven-Earth Association in the future. At that time, she could find a chance to understand the background of the Heaven-Earth Association. In addition, Nye Xiaoyu also wanted to understand the reason why Qing Menjing was caught. If possible, it would be best to release Miss Cheng, and then ask the Heaven-Earth Association to help find the whereabouts of Xiao Chen and the others, so that they could reunite as soon as possible. Thinking that she had so many things to do, Nye Xiaoyu felt a heavy burden on her shoulders. She did not dare to delay any longer. She calmed down and immediately began to cultivate. In an inn in Yaoxian County, Xiao Chen was leaning against a chair in boredom, chatting with Hong Zhu from time to time. Xiao Chen had been bored to death over the past few days. Every day, he would use his divine sense imprint to observe Elder Nangong's movements. However, he discovered that ever since the old thing returned to the sect, he had not left at all. He had been hiding in his room all day, as if he was studying his injuries. The reason for this deduction was because Xiao Chen discovered that Elder Nangong had secretly brought back a lot of heavenly treasures from the pharmacy. There were all sorts of medicines, such as healing wounds, restoring cultivation, and even aphrodisiacs. However, no matter what medicinal herbs Elder Nangong used, the broken meridians in his body did not show any signs of improvement. After trying for a while, he almost gave up. He stayed in his room and circulated his mental cultivation method, hoping that one day his injuries would start to improve. At first, when Xiao Chen discovered this situation, he could not help but laugh inwardly. The injuries he inflicted on others were basically impossible to cure. This Elder Nangong was simply indulging in fantasy. Xiao Chen had originally planned to wait patiently for the young master to contact Elder Nangong. In his opinion, the entire headquarters of Yaoxian County had been burned to the ground by him, so the young master would definitely not be able to sit still and ask Elder Nangong about the situation. In this way, he would be able to obtain more information without any effort. But unexpectedly, the young master seemed to have disappeared from the world. There was not the slightest movement from him, and besides eating and sleeping, Elder Nangong only drank medicine to treat his injuries. It seemed that he had no intention of contacting the young master at all, wasting several days of Xiao Chen's time. "Husband Xiao Chen, how much longer do we have to stay here?" Hong Zhu sat on the bed, swinging his legs as he yawned and asked, "Besides cultivating, all I do is eat and sleep. It's really a bit boring. Has your matter been resolved yet? Who knows what's wrong with the young master? It's already been so many days, but he's still completely ignoring Elder Nangong." Xiao Chen also frowned helplessly and said, we can't keep waiting like this. We can't keep wasting time on this kind of thing. We have to make some changes. At this thought, Xiaochen could no longer sit still and stood up to change into a light set of clothes. Seeing this, Hongzhu immediately jumped down from the bed. He excitedly pulled Xiaochen and asked, "Husband Xiaochen, where are you going? Are you going to fight? Take me with you." "I'm not going to fight. I'm going to the Profound Cloud sect," Xiaochen explained as he changed his clothes. "I want to directly find Elder Nangong and ask him about the situation. Since I can't find any new clues, I might as well go look for him myself." "You don't have to follow me. Why can't I go with you?" Hongzhu immediately pouted. She shook Xiaochen's sleeves and said, "It's so dangerous for you to go alone. I'm worried, so I'll go with you. I can scare that old man Nangong so that he won't dare to lie." "Little Hongzhu, it's not that I don't want to take you with me, but you also know that the Profound Cloud sect is the second largest sect in the cultivation world. If something happens to me there, it'll be easier for me to escape alone. If I still have to take care of you when the time comes, both of us might die there." Xiaochen shook his head and patiently advised. "But..." Hongzhu was somewhat swayed by Xiaochen's words and a look of hesitation appeared on his face, but he was also a little unwilling. "Be good and listen to me. I reckon that I'll be back soon. Just stay in the room and wait for me to come back." Xiaochen gently kissed Hongzhu's forehead, turned around and opened the door. Caught off guard, Hongzhu was kissed. His face flushed red as he rubbed his forehead. In his heart, he recalled that Xiaochen had never treated him so gently before. For a moment, he forgot to insist on following him. He casually said, "Then. All right then. You have to come back soon." After comforting Hongzhu, Xiaochen left the inn and flew in the direction of the Profound Cloud sect on his flying sword. This time, other than asking Elder Nangong for information, Xiaochen also wanted to investigate the strength of the Profound Cloud sect. After all, this was the second largest sect in the cultivation world. If he understood their situation, he would be able to have a rough gauge of the overall level of the cultivation world. After flying in the air for nearly half an hour, Xiaochen's flying sword finally arrived in the sky above the Profound Cloud sect's territory. After hovering in the air for a while, Xiaochen discovered that the security of the sect was very tight. Regardless of whether it was the periphery or the interior, there were a large number of guards patrolling the area. The defense could be said to be watertight. Chapter 1476. In order to hide his whereabouts and not be discovered, Xiaochen set up a camouflage for himself and the flying sword in advance. If someone inadvertently looked up at the sky, they would only see a circling bird and would not notice anything strange at all. After making all the preparations, Xiaochen gradually lowered his altitude and circled around the Profound Cloud sect. The Profound Cloud sect occupied a very large area. Trying to find a person inside was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Furthermore, Xiaochen did not dare to release his divine sense to its maximum range. He could only carefully explore every area. Fortunately, he had just broken through and his essence was abundant, so he did not feel the pinch when he exhausted it. After searching for a long time, Xiaochen finally found Elder Nangong's retreat in a 2-story building at the back of the Profound Cloud sect. After determining the direction, he drove the flying sword and prepared to fly there. Just as Xiaochen took a breath, before he could control the flying sword to glide, he suddenly heard the warning voice of the Elder Heaven Ancestor in his mind. "Xiaochen, are you stupid? Just take a look and observe. Why do you want to go down and take a look? Do you think this is a market or a street garden? You can stroll around whenever you want." Hearing the voice of the Elder Heaven Ancestor, Xiaochen suddenly stopped the flying sword. He touched his nose and smiled embarrassedly. "I just want to look for Elder Nangong. It should be fine, right? Moreover, you see that I have been very reserved. I did not release my divine sense wantonly. I have also made sufficient preparations to disguise myself. I only plan to ask him some questions and leave. I don't want to fight with anyone. Do you think it is up to you to decide whether to fight or not?" Hurry up and go. The elder heaven ancestor urged again, I am not scaring you. With your cultivation, if you go down and are discovered, you will die. There are many mountain opening stage experts in the sect. I just took a casual glance and found a peak opening stage expert in charge. If you go, you won't be able to come back. It turned out that when Xiaochen had just arrived in the sky above the Profound Clouds sect, Elder Tian had already discreetly investigated the situation of the sect. Seeing that Xiaochen was really planning to enter the sect, he spoke up to stop him, in case Xiaochen did something stupid due to a moment of carelessness. All right, I'll listen to you. Xiaochen hesitated for a moment, but his rationality still won over his impulsiveness. He secretly memorized Elder Nan Gong's residence and immediately flew into the sky. He controlled his flying sword and quickly left the Profound Clouds sect. As he flew out, Xiaochen did not forget to ask the Elder Heaven Ancestor for advice. Elder Heaven Ancestor, I'm actually quite curious. Now that I'm at the mountain opening stage, what's the next stage? According to my current cultivation speed, how long will it take for me to break through? You are only half a step into the mountain opening stage. You haven't reached the mountain opening stage yet. The Elder Heaven Ancestor first attacked Xiaochen, then solemnly warned, the next stage after the mountain opening stage is the earth opening stage. However, you have to be honest with me. Once a cultivator breaks through the mountain opening stage, they will enter a big realm. It is different from the previous foundation building pill. Not the same? Do I have to change my cultivation method? Or is the method of cultivation different? Xiaochen asked with some surprise. That is not necessary. Normal cultivation is the same as before. You just need to cultivate patiently. However, once you reach the peak of each stage, if you want to continue to break through to the next stage, it will not be like before. You can't just rely on hard work to succeed. You must rely on external forces or encounter some kind of fortuitous encounter. Therefore, don't think about it for the time being. The Elder Heaven Ancestor lightly explained. External forces, fortuitous encounter. Xiaochen muttered a few words, then smiled and said, Elder Heaven Ancestor, aren't you my external force and fortuitous encounter? With you here, why would I be afraid of not being able to break through? You have a glib tongue. You should hurry back and seize the time to cultivate. Break through to the mountain opening stage first. The Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice was very relaxed. Obviously, he was very happy with Xiaochen's flattery. After laughing and scolding, he did not say anything else. When Xiaochen saw that the Elder Heaven Ancestor was not willing to let go, he could only helplessly shake his head and smile bitterly. Then, he drove his flying sword towards the Yaoxian County. However, thinking about it, Xiaochen felt that the Elder Heaven Ancestor's words were indeed reasonable. He was currently only half a step into the mountain opening stage. Moreover, if it was not for Hong Zhu's urgent help, he was afraid that he would not be able to reach this stage. He would have already lost his life. If he immediately thought about breaking through to the earth opening stage, he would really be biting off more than he could chew. He had to first plan how to work hard to improve his level. Just as Xiaochen left the Profound Clouds sect and set off for the Yaoxian County, in a secret room of the Profound Clouds sect, a middle-aged man wearing a gray robe suddenly opened his eyes. This middle-aged man originally seemed to be in a state of cultivation. His entire body was covered in a majestic yuan qi. The fluctuations of his aura constantly spread in all directions, even creating visible ripples in the air. He looked very powerful. After he opened his eyes, he frowned slightly and immediately released an earth-shattering divine sense that enveloped the entire sect. Although the divine sense was very overbearing and arrogant, the other people in the sect seemed to be unaware of it and were still immersed in their own matters. Oh, strange, it seems that a spirit beast flew through the air, a cold voice echoed in the secret room. The middle-aged man used his divine sense to carefully examine every corner of the Profound Clouds sect. He did not even let go of the sky. He swept his eyes back and forth several times while muttering a few words. After half an hour, the middle-aged man did not seem to find anything. There was a faint trace of regret on his face as he slowly closed his eyes again and re-entered the state of breaking through to the earth opening stage. Xiao Chen was unaware of what was happening behind him. He returned to Yaoxian County without a hitch. However, he did not return to his room in the inn. Instead, he sat down on the roof of the inn and stared at the people coming and going on the streets below. He was in a daze. Elder Heaven Ancestor, what should I do next? On the way back, the more Xiao Chen thought about it, the more depressed he became. Right now, his strength was weak. If he did not level up as soon as possible, it would be very difficult for him to advance. What do you mean? Elder Heaven Ancestor pretended to be stupid and did not understand what Xiao Chen was saying. Of course, how to increase my level. Xiao Chen's expression collapsed and he said helplessly, you can see that with my current strength, I cannot make a living in the immortal cultivation world. You are too weak as a master. Now that your disciple has reached this point, you should at least lend a hand, right? Chapter 1477. Brat, you only know how to covet my things. Elder Heaven Ancestor was not as dispirited as Xiao Chen. He only snorted, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Hee, why else would I call you my master? Xiao Chen smiled and asked impatiently, do you have any powerful magic tools that you can give me? Or perhaps pills that can increase my cultivation quickly? As long as they can increase my strength, I won't have to worry too much about doing things. Elder Heaven Ancestor could not do anything about Xiao Chen's pestering, so he could only give him some advice. You are only at the half-step mountain opening stage now, so your strength is still not enough. You should hurry up and consolidate your cultivation to the first level of the mountain opening stage. When the time comes, I will guide you to explore an ancient mystic realm. I hid some good things there when I was alive. After you obtain them, you can inherit my mantle and become stronger in no time. Oh. There's such a good thing. Why didn't you say so earlier? Xiao Chen was overjoyed as he agreed. He did not forget to grumble. If he had known that Elder Heaven Ancestor had hidden treasures, he would not have wasted so much time when he first entered the immortal cultivation world. He would have focused on dual cultivation with Hongzhu every day. When he obtained the treasures of Elder Heaven Ancestor, he would be able to run amok in the immortal cultivation world. I originally wanted to tell you after you reached the mountain opening stage. Who knew that you would be so useless? Even now, you are only at the half-step mountain opening stage. How can you blame me for that? Elder Heaven Ancestor naturally saw through Xiao Chen's thoughts. He did not hold back at all and pointed the spearhead at Xiao Chen. Let's not care about these details. What kind of treasures are you hiding? Xiao Chen scratched his head and changed the topic awkwardly. You will know when the time comes. Elder Heaven Ancestor did not answer directly. Instead, he gave him a serious warning. But I will say the ugly words first. Don't have too much hope for the treasure. Even if you get it, you cannot be too arrogant and domineering in the future. Although the immortal cultivation world is not big, there are still many old monsters who live in seclusion. If you alarm them, the consequences will be very troublesome. You should understand. I know. I am not a 3-year-old child who has to compete with others. Xiao Chen helplessly shrugged and responded. Now that he had a direction to go, Xiao Chen's confidence soared and the gloominess in his heart was swept away. He turned around and entered the inn, returning to his room and preparing to dual cultivate with Hongzhu. Unfortunately, the heavens did not go according to his wishes. Although Xiao Chen and Hongzhu continued to dual cultivate day and night, his progress was still very slow. He was still far from successfully stepping into the mountain opening stage. On the contrary, Hongzhu's cultivation level soared after dual cultivating. In just a few short days, he had already broken through to the nascent soul stage. This made Xiao Chen even more gloomy. No matter how he thought about it, he still could not figure out what the problem was. On the other hand, Hongzhu's cultivation level soared after dual cultivating. In just a few days, he had already broken through to the nascent soul stage. This made Xiao Chen even more gloomy. No matter how he thought about it, he still could not figure out what the problem was. As long as you are happy. Xiao Chen absent-mindedly nodded. This time, he did not make any progress in their dual cultivation, so he was already feeling a little anxious. Hee, this is all thanks to your help. Elder sister was able to break through to this stage in such a short period of time. Hongzhu keenly sensed Xiao Chen's absent-mindedness. She simply raised her head and used her gentle and charming eyes to look at him. She teased him in a very playful manner, say, "How should elder sister thank you? Why don't we change the taste tonight and play a little more exciting?" "Oh, do as you wish." Xiao Chen was still absent-minded and casually agreed. He did not have any interest in Hongzhu's seduction. His entire mind was filled with thoughts about the treasure hidden in the secret realm that the elder heaven ancestor had mentioned. Right now, he had to consolidate his cultivation to the first layer of the mountain opening stage as soon as possible. Only then would he be able to explore the secret realm. However, the results of his cultivation over the past few days had been minimal. It was as if a plate of steaming braised pork had been placed in front of him, but it had been covered by a glass cover. Although his desire to eat it was extremely strong, he was unable to break through the cover no matter what. "What's wrong? Why do you look a little unhappy?" Hongzhu's hot face was plastered to a cold butt. He unhappily curled his lips and muttered, "Could it be that because elder sister's work is not good enough, so you are unable to raise your spirits?" Although Hongzhu also understood that once a man and woman passed the period of passionate love, the interest in life would gradually cool down, wasn't Xiao Chen a little too cold? It had not even been a month. Foolish Hongzhu. Could it be that in your eyes, I am a shallow man who only thinks with the lower half of his body? Aren't you looking down on me a little too much? Xiao Chen came back to his senses. When he saw Hongzhu's fuming look, he knew that he had neglected her feelings because of the matter regarding the treasure. He pinched her soft cheeks apologetically and teased her in a faint voice. All right. It's nothing. Elder sister, I just feel that you seem to have something on your mind. Why don't you tell me and see if elder sister can help you solve it?" When Hongzhu saw that Xiao Chen wasn't tired of him, the clouds on his face parted as if he had seen the sun. His expression instantly brightened up. He gently leaned on Xiao Chen's shoulder and mischievously stretched out his finger to tease his earlobe. From time to time, he would even blow air into his ear. "You're really stupid and adorably stupid. How could there be such an easy matter to solve?" Xiao Chen affectionately scratched Hongzhu's nose. After thinking for a while, he simply explained, "Didn't I make a trip to the profound cloud sect a few days ago? After that, I discovered that there were many mountain opening stage experts there, so I didn't dare to rashly go in. I just wanted to come back and dual cultivate with them to raise my cultivation, but in the end..." Sigh. Xiao Chen gently sighed. Although he knew that Hongzhu wouldn't be able to help, it wasn't appropriate for him to watch her worry blindly. Thus, it was better for him to tell her about it so that she would feel more at ease. He would just treat it as someone he could confide in. "Oh, so that's how it is. Isn't that simple? Of course elder sister has a solution." Hongzhu nodded in sudden realization. She rolled her eyes and suddenly said with a smile, "Stop fooling around. How could you possibly have a solution?" Xiao Chen naturally didn't believe her, but when he saw the confident look on Hongzhu's face, he felt that she didn't seem to be joking. Chapter 1478. The method is very simple. Hongzhu puffed out his chest, snapped his fingers, and said with a mischievous smile, "Tomorrow, we'll go and lure a virgin back together. Then, you and her will do it, gather her primordial yin, and then take the opportunity to cultivate. Wouldn't that increase your progress?" Pfft. What kind of rotten idea is this? Forget it, I'll think of a way myself. Hearing Hongzhu's strange idea, Xiao Chen almost spat out. He couldn't help but roll his eyes, and could only ask for help in his sea of consciousness. "I say, elder heaven ancestor, do you have any good ideas? Something that can help me quickly advance to the first layer of the opening mountain stage?" "Of course there is a way. Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice came out unhurriedly. Ah. Why didn't you say so earlier if there was a way? I've wasted a few days' worth of effort. Xiao Chen's vision darkened, and he almost cried. Was Elder Heaven Ancestor playing with him? You didn't ask at the time. Elder Heaven Ancestor chuckled, and then said seriously, all right, I won't joke around anymore. You reached the half-step opening mountain stage while unconscious, and you don't have enough understanding of the stage to begin with. You should spend a few days to properly consolidate your foundation, familiarize yourself with this stage, and then proceed to the next step. This. Alright, then what's the method this time? You wouldn't be like Hongzhu, and want me to find another woman to do it with, right? Xiao Chen laughed bitterly, and asked in an extremely sincere manner. Wishful thinking. Elder Heaven Ancestor said sarcastically to Xiao Chen again, and then returned to the main topic. Let's follow the same routine as before. Boil the natural treasures into a medicinal soup, drink it, and then combine it with exercise to cultivate. However, the medicinal ingredients you brought from the inner martial world are not enough. You'll need to get some medicinal ingredients from the immortal cultivation world to complement it. This way, the effect will be more obvious, or it will be useless. Alright, it's time to take medicine again. Xiao Chen mocked himself, then asked, then please give me a list of the herbs you need from the world of cultivators this time. Tomorrow, I'll go to the Burning Heavens sect to get it. Anyway, they've already planted quite a lot of heavenly treasures. Last time when they destroyed the mountain bandits' lair, they even seized their warehouse. I reckon that they've profited quite a lot. It should be enough for me to deal with for a while. That won't do. Previously, when they were counting the treasures of heaven and earth, I had already carefully looked through them. The level of the Burning Sky faction's items is still too low. They might not be able to deal with your prescription this time. Elder Heaven Ancestor mercilessly rejected Xiao Chen's suggestion. Xiao Chen frowned. Before he had time to ask, Elder Heaven Ancestor immediately added, you can ask that kid Nangong to get some suitable heavenly treasures. No matter what, the Profound Cloud sect is the second largest sect in the cultivation world. The people there are all experienced. They must have a lot of good stuff hidden. After that, Elder Heaven Ancestor made a list in Xiao Chen's mind. On it, there were 7 or 8 kinds of rare herbs that Xiao Chen had never heard of or seen before. Flaming Mist Lotus, Tranquilizing Demon Emperor Flower, Blood Star Leaf Grass. After silently reading the herbs on the list, Xiao Chen was at a loss. He could only shake his head slightly. The names of these herbs sounded very imposing. It seemed that only a large sect like the Profound Cloud sect was qualified to have them. Last time when he was counting the treasures of heaven and earth in the Burning Sky faction, he really hadn't seen or even heard of these things. Yes, these are the things on this prescription. Hurry up and ask Nangong for them. Elder Heaven Ancestor said lightly. Just as Xiao Chen was about to agree, he suddenly remembered something very important. He quickly said, that's not right, Elder Heaven Ancestor. Last time, you said that the Profound Cloud sect was full of experts and told me not to provoke them. Now you want me to go find Nangong. What should I do? Do I have to go directly to their sect to visit them? What's so difficult about that? Elder Heaven Ancestor's tone was as simple as eating a meal. Can't you just use the Divine Sense imprint to communicate with them? Using the Divine Sense imprint to communicate? Xiao Chen scratched his head. What kind of new skill was this? He had never heard of it before. It is to pour your mental energy into the Divine Sense imprint on Nangong's body and then make a sound. The Yuan Qi will naturally transform the sound waves and transmit them to the imprint before sending them out again. Elder Heaven Ancestor slowly explained. So that's how it is. This is really quite convenient. Xiao Chen nodded in realization. After a pause, he asked, then why didn't you tell me this before? If I had known, I wouldn't have gone to the Profound Cloud sect. I really forgot about this. Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice sounded very innocent. Xiao Chen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He shook his head and wanted to say something else, but was interrupted by Hongzhu. Husband Xiao Chen, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about when you can go find a suitable girl tomorrow? Hongzhu saw that Xiao Chen was in a daze and couldn't help but wave his hand in front of his eyes as he asked jealously. What are you thinking about? Xiao Chen rubbed Hongzhu's head and said with a smile, I just thought of a more suitable method, so I fell into deep thought and didn't have time to talk to you. Alright, go to sleep first. I'll be busy for a while. I'll come find you when I'm done. Then I'll wait for you in bed. Hongzhu saw that Xiao Chen seemed to have found a way and no longer pestered him. He obediently nodded and kissed him on the cheek before washing up and going to sleep. After the surroundings had quietened down, Xiao Chen began to release his divine sense and mental energy. Using the divine sense imprint that he had placed on Elder Nangong's body, he quietly transmitted his voice, Hey, Elder Nangong, I'm your exalted immortal Xiao. If you hear me, hurry up and say something. This exalted immortal has something important for you to do. At this moment, in a room in the profound cloud sect not too far away, Elder Nangong had already fallen asleep. That familiar voice that had suddenly sounded in his ear scared Elder Nangong so much that he immediately rolled off the bed. He wrapped himself in the blanket and looked around with wide eyes. Strangely, the room was empty and he couldn't find anyone. Elder Nangong was a little puzzled and he couldn't figure it out. That voice just now had been too real, so real that he couldn't believe that it was a dream. Alright, stop looking left and right. This exalted immortal was the one who called for you. If you know what's good for you, hurry up and wake up and reply. Just as Elder Nangong was beginning to believe that he was having a nightmare and that was why he could hear someone talking, that extremely familiar demonic voice rang out in his ear once again. This time, Elder Nangong was in a clear-headed state so he could immediately tell that the other party was the one he had seen before, the one who had been injured by him, Xiao Chen. Chapter 1479. Then. Are you exalted immortal Xiao? Elder Nangong shrunk his neck and mustered his courage to ask. However, after asking, he was a little confused. He looked around again and especially looked outside the door and window. There was really no one there. He could not help but be confused. What kind of unique magic treasure did exalted immortal Xiao have? How could he transmit his voice from such a long distance? Well, why are you asking so many questions if you know? Without waiting for Elder Nangong to finish his question, Xiao Chen's fierce voice rang out again. Go to your sect's pharmacy right now and get some of the medicinal ingredients I reported to you. Bring them over to me as a tribute. Hiss. Elder Nangong realized that Xiao Chen was actually talking to him. He could not help but gasp. When had he ever seen such a strange phenomenon? In the immortal cultivation world, didn't one need to use a voice-transmitting talisman? He was not even holding a voice-transmitting talisman. How did Xiao Chen do it? Was there a more convenient way? Why are you still standing there? Hurry up and get a pen and paper. Write down all the treasures I need. Xiao Chen urged impatiently when he saw that Elder Nangong did not move for a long time. Elder Nangong shivered in fear. After regaining his composure, he hesitated for a while and asked softly, Exalted immortal Xiao, that. I want to ask, how did you transmit your voice? Why didn't you use a voice-transmitting talisman or something? Hearing Nangong's body temperature, Xiao Chen was slightly stunned. He asked the Elder Heaven Ancestor in his divine sense. Nangong's reaction seems a little strange. Isn't he an immortal cultivator? Doesn't he know that the divine sense imprint set up with mental energy can not only monitor but also transmit? Pfft, what do they know? The Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice was full of disdain. These people are too weak. Immortal cultivators like us are pure immortal cultivators. We belong to the Orthodox sect. Their kind of broken immortal cultivation has been thousands of years ago. Their original complete immortal cultivation techniques have long been lost. What's left are just broken scrolls. They are basically imitations. They are not comparable to us at all. Oh, I see. I understand now. Xiao Chen nodded in understanding. Then, he gathered his divine sense and mental energy and transmitted a message to Elder Nangong. Why do you like to ask so much? Do I still need to rely on a lowly thing like the sound-transmitting talisman? I naturally have my own methods. You wouldn't understand even if I told you this. Alright, then you just said that you want me to record the heavenly treasures. Elder Nangong could not get an answer from Xiao Qin, so he could only reply in a somewhat sullen manner. When he thought about how he had to steal the medicinal ingredients for the person who injured him, his mood became extremely gloomy. You don't have to feel too bad. In return for the medicinal ingredients you gave me, I can help you restore the broken meridians and acupoints in your body, as well as all the injuries I caused, back to their original state. Xiao Qin could hear Elder Nangong's hesitation. He didn't bother to scare him anymore and directly threw out his most important bargaining chip. What? Is what you said true? Elder Nangong was instantly shocked and said in disbelief, but I have never heard of a case where the meridians were broken to this extent could still be cured. Recently, Elder Nangong had already tried many heavenly treasures in the sect and also invited many famous doctors to diagnose him. However, his injuries did not improve at all. After those famous doctors diagnosed his injuries, they also gave the verdict that he could not be cured. Elder Nangong was completely disheartened and wanted to give up treatment. He did not expect that Xiao Qin would give him hope at this time. He could not help but worry about his gains and losses. Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean that there are no such cases. Xiao Qin added indifferently, if you don't believe me, you might as well ask about Burning Sky Sect's Gong Ruidong. Not long ago, his old leg injury was cured by me. This. If Exalted Immortal Xiao doesn't mind, why don't you give me a little more time? Elder Nangong struggled for a long time and then said with a trembling voice, wait for me to confirm Gong Ruidong's situation, then, all right. Before Elder Nangong could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Xiao Chen's voice in his ear, you better hurry up. This Exalted Immortal is in a good mood recently, which is why I am giving you this rare opportunity. Do not waste my good intentions. All right, I will go investigate immediately. Elder Nangong did not think that Xiao Chen would really agree to his request. He was overjoyed and responded a few times. Xiao Chen made a sound of, oh, and did not respond anymore. Elder Nangong waited for a while in fear and trepidation, but the room was still silent. Only then did he determine that Exalted Immortal Xiao would not send another sound transmission. He could not be bothered to sleep and climbed up from the ground. After hurriedly putting on his clothes, he went out and woke one of his subordinates up from his sleep. Facing his confused subordinate, Elder Nangong sternly ordered him to immediately inquire about the Burning Heavens faction's Grand Elder Gong Ruidong's latest news. Furthermore, Elder Nangong had specially instructed his subordinate to understand the cause and effect of the investigation. Not a single detail could be left out. Furthermore, he had to report all the information he obtained to Elder Nangong as soon as possible. After being yelled at by Elder Nangong, the subordinate who was originally still sleepy had also woken up. Naturally, he did not dare to delay and immediately accepted the order. After a simple packing, he immediately set off. Looking at the back of his subordinate hurriedly leaving, Elder Nangong finally let out a sigh of relief. He returned to his room uneasily and sat on the bed in a daze. A glimmer of light gradually emerged in his heart. Elder Nangong could clearly feel that after his cultivation was crippled, the profound Cloud sect leader gradually began to not pay much attention to him. Although the sect leader allowed him to use medicinal herbs to treat him, his usual attitude towards him had gradually become cold. Elder Nangong guessed that if it was not for the fact that he had made some outstanding contributions to the sect and some special reasons, if he was just an ordinary disciple, the sect leader might have already kicked him out of the sect. However, right now, Xiao Chen's generous promise was undoubtedly like a life-saving straw, causing Elder Nangong to be extremely excited. If the subordinate he sent out could confirm that Gong Ruidong was indeed cured by Xiao Chen, then no matter how great the price he had to pay, he must firmly grasp this rare opportunity. If Xiao Chen could really cure her, then she would be able to restore her prestige in the sect. Then, all the grudges and unwillingness between the two of them could be written off in one stroke. The medicinal herbs that Xiao Chen mentioned, it would not be a problem for him to hand over with both hands. Chapter 1480. As the saying goes, speed is of the essence in war. While Elder Nan Gong was waiting anxiously, the disciple of the Profound Cloud sect only spent one day to reach the Lucian County where the Burning Sky faction was located. Relying on the powerful network of the Profound Cloud sect, he quickly found out that Gong Ruidong had indeed gone berserk during cultivation, causing her blood to flow in reverse, causing her meridians to be broken and becoming a cripple. Furthermore, there were a lot of witnesses, so it could not be faked. This was because Gong Ruidong had specially found many doctors to diagnose him. However, everyone's conclusion was that his injuries were too serious and could not be cured. It was estimated that he would not be able to stand up again in this lifetime. After the Yun Xian sect disciple asked all kinds of people in the Lucian County, he had a rough idea in his heart. He then turned around and snuck into the Burning Sky faction silently. However, after entering the Burning Sky faction, the scene that he saw made him endlessly shocked. He saw Gong Ruidong in the plaza giving guidance to the disciples' cultivation in high spirits, walking here and there with large strides. His figure was extremely nimble, and he didn't look like someone who would be permanently disabled. The Yun Xian sect disciple looked at the scene in front of him in shock. He could not believe his eyes. When he came back to his senses, he finally remembered Elder Nan Gong's instructions. He hurriedly left the Burning Sky faction and returned to the inn where he was staying. After returning to the inn, the Yun Xian sect disciple did not even have time to stick his butt to the chair. He immediately took out the sound-transmitting amulet to contact Elder Nan Gong and reported everything in detail. Elder Nan Gong, who had not slept for the whole night, listened to his subordinate's report. He did not know whether he was surprised or happy. He stood there in a daze for a while before grabbing the list of medicinal ingredients that Xiao Chen had asked for. He turned around and walked towards the direction of the medicine room. Elder Nan Gong's position in the Yun Xian sect was originally very high. In addition, he was also healing himself. Therefore, when he asked for all kinds of strange medicinal ingredients, the disciple in charge of the medicine room did not suspect much. After letting him simply register, he obediently handed over all the medicinal ingredients with both hands. After receiving the medicinal ingredients, Elder Nan Gong did not say much to the others. He directly left the mountain gate and went straight to the inn that Xiao Chen had mentioned before in the Yaoxian County. Dong dong dong. At this very moment, Xiao Chen was leisurely waiting in the inn for Elder Nan Gong to deliver the herbs to him. When he heard the knocking on the door, he first spread out his spiritual sense to check the surroundings. After confirming that the visitor was indeed Elder Nan Gong and that there were no other suspicious people lying in ambush nearby, he nodded to Hongzhu and opened the door with his spiritual sense. Hee, that. Exalted Immortal Shao, Miss Hong, good morning. When Elder Nan Gong saw the door open by itself, he panicked a little. He quickly put on a smiling face and tiptoed into the room. He closed the door gently and respectfully greeted the two of them. He conveniently placed the bundle in his hand on the table. You came? Have you brought all the heavenly treasures that I've told you about? Xiao Chen glanced at Elder Nan Gong indifferently and asked unhurriedly. I've brought them. Elder Nan Gong immediately answered. He then carefully opened the bundle on the table and carefully took out every single heavenly treasure and piled them on the table. He did not forget to introduce them one by one. Look, this is the flaming mist lotus, that is the tranquilizing demon emperor flower, and this is the blood lingji star leaf grass. Not long after, the medicinal ingredients that Elder Nan Gong brought filled the entire table. He only stopped when he had taken out all the heavenly treasures from the bundle. He said with a humble expression, Exalted Immortal Shao, the medicinal ingredients that you've asked me to bring are all here. They have all been lost. You can count them yourself. There shouldn't be any mistakes. There's no need for that. I still have some trust in you. Since you said there's no mistake, then there's definitely no mistake. Xiao Chen waved his hand casually. He did not even look at the dazzling array of heavenly treasures on the table. He said lazily, "All right, there's nothing else for you to do. You can go back first." Elder Nan Gong was taken aback. He did not leave immediately. Instead, he awkwardly rubbed his hands together and squeezed out a smile. He asked weakly, Exalted Immortal Shao, didn't you say that as long as I have the medicinal ingredients that you need, you will heal my injuries? Since I've brought all these things for you, do you think? What's the hurry? In any case, you won't die for a while." Shao Chen glared at Elder Nan Gong. He stood up and walked to the table. He quickly put away the heavenly treasures and put them into his own bag as if nothing had happened. But this, that. Elder Nan Gong was a little dumbfounded. Looking at Shao Chen's attitude, could it be that he was going to turn his back on him after he had obtained the heavenly treasures? Now that he had lost his cultivation, there was nothing he could do even if Shao Chen wanted to renege on his promise. Shao Chen did not care too much about Elder Nan Gong's thoughts. He just wanted to try out the heavenly treasures and see if they were useful. If the medicinal effects were insufficient or if there were any problems, he could ask Elder Nan Gong to bring more over. However, when Shao Chen turned his head and saw that Elder Nan Gong was about to cry, he could only shake his head helplessly and explain, "What are you thinking about? Won't I need time to brew the medicine for you? Just wait obediently. I'll finish brewing the medicine for you later. Wait, 3 days later, you can come back to get it." This. All right. Then I'll wait for your good news. Elder Nan Gong's heart relaxed slightly. He forced a smile and nodded in agreement. Elder Nan Gong originally thought that after handing over all the heavenly treasures to Shao Chen, he would be able to help him heal. He did not expect that he would have to wait for a few more days. Although it had been delayed for a few days, at least Shao Chen had given him a definite answer. It was not like what Elder Nan Gong thought that Shao Chen would burn the bridge after crossing it. Right now, Elder Nan Gong could only choose to leave first. After all, his fate was still in the hands of Shao Chen. No matter what Shao Chen said, he had to do as he was told. There was no room for negotiation. However, Elder Nan Gong did not directly return to the Xianyan sect. After leaving Shao Chen's room, he immediately went to the innkeeper of the inn. He also booked a room in the inn. He planned to go to Shao Chen's place as soon as possible in 3 days, so that he would not have to make a trip to the Xianyan sect. Elder Nan Gong's actions were clearly seen by Shao Chen through the divine sense imprint. However, he was too lazy to care about this old man's thoughts. If he wanted to wait, then wait. Chapter 1481. After closing the door to his room, he began to take out the heavenly treasures of the cultivation world one by one. He also took out the medicinal herbs he had brought from the inner martial world and placed them on the table. Then, he mixed the two together. Hongzhu smiled as she nestled against Shao Chen's side. She curiously watched his movements and asked with great interest, "Husband, will you be able to quickly level up after eating these medicinal herbs? Do you want Big Sister to catch a first maiden for you? Perhaps the medicinal herbs will be even more effective when paired with a first maiden." "Why do you always want me to do that with a first maiden? Are you addicted to it?" Shao Chen unhappily rolled his eyes at Hongzhu. Then, he began to rummage around the room for something. "Husband Shao Chen, what are you looking for? Tell Big Sister will help you look for it." Hongzhu curiously asked when she saw Shao Chen's actions. "I'm looking for a vessel to boil medicine in." Shao Chen rummaged for a while but was unable to find a suitable substitute. So, he casually instructed, "Since you want to help, you might as well borrow a cauldron from the inn's waiter. After the medicine is boiled, you can drink some of it as well. It will be of great help to raise your cultivation." "I want to drink it too." "Then do you have enough for yourself?" Hongzhu blinked her eyes and earnestly asked, "Why don't I let you drink all of it? In any case, Big Sister is already a nascent soul expert. It doesn't matter even if I level up a little slower. Don't I still have you to protect me? It's fine. There are so many medicinal herbs. It's enough for the two of us to drink." It was as if Xiao Chen had already seen through Hongzhu's thoughts. He did not accept her kindness and instead rubbed her head with a confident look on his face. Then. All right then. Wait a moment, I'll go borrow a cauldron. Hongzhu curled his lips, shot a glare at Xiao Chen, walked out of the door, called over a waiter, gave him a few spirit crystals, and instructed him to buy a clay pot specially used to boil medicine, as well as a pot of hot water. When everything was ready, Xiao Chen put the treasures into the clay pot one by one according to the order. Then, he condensed a samadhi true fire in his palm. He put the clay pot on his palm and slowly stewed it. His eyes stared at the red bottom of the pot without blinking, but he had mixed feelings in his heart. Back then, when he had just been kicked out of the Shao family, he couldn't even afford a 300 yuan electric pot. If it wasn't for Yi Xiaoya's kindness and generosity in giving him a pot, he might really be at his wits' end. A hero is no man without money. Looking back at the present, now that he had the strength, he didn't even need to use an electric clay pot. As long as he had a container, he could directly use the samadhi true fire to boil medicine. Moreover, he could even easily judge the time and temperature. Compared to the past, he was hundreds of times happier. He didn't know how Yi Xiaoya and the others were doing in the martial arts world. Had they stabilized the morale of the Awakening Heaven sect? Was everything safe and sound? And Qing Menjing, Tang Tang, and the others who had entered the immortal cultivation world with him, were they all right? Where are they all? At that moment, many beautiful figures flashed through Xiao Chen's mind, and he was a little dazed for a moment. After about the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, a strong medicinal fragrance drifted out of the clay pot and pervaded the whole room. It was both bitter and fragrant. Xiao Chen collected his thoughts and used his divine sense to sense the efficacy of the medicine. Estimating that it was almost done, he put away the samadhi true fire and evenly poured the medicinal liquid into 2 porcelain bowls that he had prepared earlier. After handing one of the bowls to Hongzhu, Xiao Chen casually picked up the other bowl, brought it to his mouth, and raised his head, preparing to drink the entire medicinal liquid. Wait! Hongzhu suddenly shouted. Xiao Chen's hand froze and he lowered his head to look at her in surprise. That elder sister is too afraid of bitterness. Husband, you should drink a little more. This medicinal liquid doesn't smell good, and I don't want to suffer so much. Hongzhu rolled his eyes and plausibly found an excuse. Without waiting for Xiao Chen to respond, Hongzhu picked up her own bowl and carefully poured a little of the medicinal liquid into Xiao Chen's bowl. When she felt that it was about right, she closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and drank the entire medicinal liquid in her bowl. In truth, Hongzhu was not some pampered little princess, nor was she afraid of the bitter taste of this trivial medicinal liquid. She simply felt that natural treasures were not easy to come by, and the gap in strength between the two of them was quite large, so it would be better for the stronger Xiao Chen to drink more. In Hongzhu's view, it was secondary whether she wanted to improve her strength or not. In any case, whenever something happened, it would be Xiao Chen who would be the one fighting, and there would be no need for her to do anything. Xiao Chen smiled faintly. Naturally, he understood that Hongzhu was doing this for his own good. He gently pinched the tip of her nose and no longer tried to refuse. He raised the porcelain bowl in his hand and drank all of the medicinal liquid. When Hongzhu saw that Xiao Chen had drunk the entire medicinal liquid, she immediately revealed a satisfied smile and diligently cleaned up the 2 bowls. After that, she obediently sat down on a chair and waited for the medicinal liquid to take effect. After a short while, Xiao Chen suddenly felt a warm sensation in his dantian, and a strange aura began to circulate in his dantian. Xiao Chen keenly realized that this must be the effect of the medicinal liquid he had just drunk. Without delaying any further, he immediately pulled Hongzhu to sit on the bed, and the 2 of them entered into a familiar state of dual cultivation. However, contrary to Xiao Chen's expectations, perhaps because the medicinal liquid was too thick, or perhaps because too many herbs had been added, the medicinal effect was very slow to take effect. The 2 of them did not eat or drink, and instead cultivated wholeheartedly for 2 days and 1 night before the dual cultivation finally came to an end. Although the cultivation time was very long, the results were still very remarkable. Xiao Chen, with the foundation accumulated from the previous cultivation, smoothly advanced to the second layer of the mountain opening stage, while Hong Zhu's progress slowed down, and he only advanced to the first layer of the nascent soul stage. Even a man made of iron would not be able to endure 2 whole days of cultivation without sleep or rest. After Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu finished their dual cultivation, they were no longer in the mood to be lovey-dovey. They did not even have time to eat, and immediately fell asleep. The two of them slept for several more hours, from dusk until the morning of the third day. Only then did they slowly recover. After waking up, they lazily lay on the bed, not wanting to get up for the time being. Hong Zhu had helped Xiao Chen successfully advance to the next layer, and had a good sleep. At this moment, her face was glowing, and she was full of energy. She was also in a very good mood. She gently leaned on Xiao Chen's shoulder, and said with a charming smile, "Husband Xiao Chen, since it's still early, why don't we, immortal Xiao, are you awake?" Before Hong Zhu could finish speaking, Elder Nangong's impatient voice came from outside, followed by a few knocks on the door. Chapter 1482. Elder Nangong patiently waited in the inn for 3 days. From time to time, he would go out to see if there was any activity in Xiao Chen's room. He thought that if Heavenly Immortal Xiao or Hong Zhu came out, he could go over and ask around. He did not expect that after 3 whole days, Heavenly Immortal Xiao and Hong Zhu actually did not come out even once. Elder Nangong almost suspected that the two of them had directly escaped through the window. With great difficulty, it was finally the 3rd day. Elder Nangong naturally woke up early in the morning. After stuffing some breakfast into his mouth, he immediately ran over to look for Xiao Chen to treat his injuries. Hearing Nangong's knock, Hong Zhu's smile immediately froze on her face. She suspected that Gong Xiaoxi and Elder Nangong were doing this on purpose. They always chose the most appropriate time to look for Xiao Chen. They were clearly deliberately trying to anger her. Xiao Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Hong Zhu's angry and hateful little face. He lightly patted her head, shook his head, and got up to put on his clothes. "Xiao. Heavenly Immortal Xiao?" Elder Nangong called out tentatively. His heart began to beat like a drum. Could it be that the two of them had really escaped like I thought? I'm up. Aren't you annoying? Why are you knocking on my door so early in the morning?" Hong Zhu impatiently jumped up from the bed and yelled at the door. Elder Nangong trembled from the yell. However, when he knew that Xiao Chen and Hong Zhu had not left, he finally felt as if a huge stone had been lifted from his heart. Hong Zhu finished putting on her clothes. When she saw that Xiao Chen was still cleaning up the medicinal dregs, she angrily went to open the door. Then, she fiercely glared at Elder Nangong outside and angrily said, "Didn't I tell you to wait for my notice? You don't know the rules at all. How preposterous, This. I'm sorry, Miss Hong. I was indeed a little rash." Elder Nangong could not raise his head after being scolded by Hong Zhu. He felt a little guilty and secretly blamed himself for being too impulsive and directly knocking on the door so early in the morning. He had offended Heavenly Immortal Xiao's Tao companion. If he did not handle it well, Heavenly Immortal Xiao might not treat his injuries anymore. "All right, what are you still standing there foolishly for? Come in and get the medicine." Xiao Chen finished packing the medicinal dregs into a small bag. When he raised his head and saw that Elder Nangong was still standing at the entrance, he spoke with a mixture of anger and amusement. "Ah. Okay. Elder Nangong came back to his senses, hastily responded, and quickly walked into the room. In his haste, he nearly tripped over the door sill, causing Hong Zhu to roll his eyes at him. Xiao Chen put the bag of herbal dregs on the table, then he found some natural treasures from the inner Wulin and put them in the bag as well. Then he put the bag in front of Elder Nangong and said lightly, "This is it. Take it back." According to the normal method of decocting the medicine, he should be able to recover after drinking it 3 to 4 times. Elder Nangong hesitated for a moment and did not immediately go to get the medicine. Instead, he carefully asked, that. Exalted immortal Shao, may I ask, why, does it seem like there are some medicinal dregs in here? Oh, this is where you don't understand. In my prescription, there are some medicinal ingredients that need to be decocted first before they can be used. There are also some ingredients that must be fresh. Xiao Chen's expression did not change as he fabricated a story. If you don't believe me, you can go and ask Gong Ruidong. When I treated him, did I also use the same medicinal dregs? If it was normal, then why would it be unique? No need, no need. Of course I believe in exalted immortal Zhao's divine healing skills. Elder Nangong hurriedly waved his hand and flattered with a flattering smile. It's good that you believe me. Xiao Chen glanced at him and asked indifferently, do you have any other questions? No, there's nothing else. Thank you, exalted immortal Shao, for the medicine. Elder Nangong hurriedly picked up the medicinal ingredients on the table and happily stuffed them into his clothes as if he had found a treasure. Although he had never heard of the saying that medicinal ingredients needed to be decocted first before they would be effective, since exalted immortal Shao had said so, he could only choose to believe him. Anyway, the result would not be any worse. At most, he could only make a desperate attempt. After keeping the medicinal ingredients, Elder Nangong only wanted to go back and drink the medicine to heal his injuries. He respectfully said to Xiao Chen, exalted immortal Shao, if there's nothing else, then I'll first, don't be in a hurry to leave. Xiao Chen interrupted Elder Nangong's words and found a seat to sit down. He said slowly, I still have something to ask you. Elder Nangong was stunned for a moment. He did not know what Xiao Chen was going to do, but he did not dare to turn around and leave. He could only obediently stand where he was and wait for exalted immortal Zhao's instructions. Xiao Chen was in no hurry. He first picked up the cup of tea that Hong Zhu had just poured for him and drank it in one gulp. Then, he casually wiped his mouth with his sleeve and looked at Elder Nangong calmly. He said, previously at the Burning Sky faction, when I asked you about the situation with the bandits, you seem to have hidden some things. Elder Nangong's expression changed slightly. He thought that Xiao Chen did not notice this matter. He did not expect that it had already fallen into his eyes. He could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth in embarrassment. When we were at the bandit headquarters, I did not wait for you to be honest. Xiao Chen did not look at Elder Nangong. He looked at the empty teacup in his hand and said in a seemingly casual manner, now that I have already given you the panacea to heal your injuries, shouldn't you explain the situation to me? Of course, of course. Elder Nangong smiled embarrassedly and scratched his head. He said, actually, it is not a big deal. There was a time when I went out to help the Profound Cloud sect with a mission. In a moment of carelessness, I fell into the enemy's trap and was attacked by several people at the same time. As a result, I was seriously injured. I did not want to tell you at the time because I was worried that I would lose face if I told you about it, so, and then? Xiao Chen could not be bothered to listen to Elder Nangong's explanation. He only wanted to know the relationship between him and the bandits. Later on, my luck was not bad. After much difficulty, I found an opportunity to escape from their encirclement. Elder Nangong explained in full detail. However, I was already seriously injured at the time and my life was in danger. In the darkness, I entered an unfamiliar place. Fortunately, the owner of that place was an expert. Not only did he not blame me for trespassing, he even kindly saved my life. It seems that you are not fated to die. The expert who saved you is the young master of the bandits, right? Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and asked. However, as soon as he asked, he remembered that the person who owed him a favor was called the Big Boss. It should be the father of the young master. No, he is the big boss of the bandits. Elder Nangong shook his head and added, at that time, he gave me a kind of medicine, but I didn't expect it to have such an immediate effect. My injuries healed just like that, and I even successfully broke through to the profound ascension stage. Chapter 1483. Oh. There's actually such a good thing. You were already on the verge of death. What medicine was so miraculous that it could actually save your life? Could it be that it was the same medicine I gave you? Hearing this, Xiao Chen's interest was piqued and he couldn't help but ask curiously. Xiao Chen actually didn't suspect that Elder Nan Gong was lying. There were definitely many strange people hidden in the cultivation world. Wasn't the Elder Heaven Ancestor one of them? Among them, there was someone who could bring someone back from the dead with a life-saving medicine that could regenerate the flesh and bones of the dead. It's not this kind. At that time, he gave me a white transparent medicine. Elder Nan Gong recalled for a while and his eyes suddenly lit up. He stretched out his finger and gestured in the air. That's right. He used a tube that was about this long. That strange tube was filled with a transparent potion, and then it was connected to a hollow needle that could inject the potion into my body. After I used the potion, it didn't take long for me to recover. Tube. Hollow needle? Xiao Chen was very astonished as he repeated. According to Elder Nan Gong's description, using a needle and a tube to inject medicine into the body. Wasn't that the same as injections in the secular world's hospitals? He was very familiar with this thing, but it shouldn't appear in the cultivation world. How could there be people doing this kind of thing in such an ancient place? This was too strange. With a head full of question marks, Xiao Chen couldn't help but sink into deep thought. Who was this person? Who brought those syringes and needles from the secular world into the cultivation world? From the looks of it, this bandit group was indeed a bit strange. If it was just an insignificant bandit group, it shouldn't be related to the secular world at all. That great master actually had such a deep understanding of the secular world. He was even familiar with how to use it. There must be a problem here. Xiao Chen thought about it again. Apart from this bandit group, that the immortal cultivation chamber of commerce also faintly revealed the shadow of the secular world. There were contracts all over the place. Could it be that there was another passage in the cultivation world that led directly to the secular world? Otherwise, why would there be so many inexplicable connections? Yes, a relatively small and hard tube, about this long, and the needle. Elder Nan Gong wanted to describe a few more words, but he was interrupted by Xiao Chen. I understand. Xiao Chen waved his hand and thought for a while. Then, he asked cautiously, then, this expert, who is also the great master, was originally so kind that he offered to treat you? No, that's not it. Elder Nan Gong shook his head with a bitter smile and explained, at that time, he said that he wanted to treat me, but the price was to use me as an experiment. After injecting the medicine into me through that tube, he needed to observe the situation. So, the drug he used is actually a new one that hasn't been tested? A thought suddenly flashed through Xiao Chen's mind like a spark. He thought of something, but when he wanted to recall it again, the light had already disappeared without a trace. It should be. Elder Nan Gong nodded and said, the great master told me that if I recovered safely after using the medicine, I could leave on my own. If I didn't recover completely, I had to stay with him and continue the treatment until I was cured. Xiao Chen didn't say anything. He added in his heart, it could also be until I die. This time, Elder Nan Gong seemed to understand what Xiao Chen was thinking. He sighed and said, at that time, I also suspected that it might be a trap. But since I was about to die, I might as well risk my life to accompany him in this experiment. Anyway, even if I didn't agree, the result would still be death. So, after using that medicine, you recovered directly? You didn't stay any longer? Xiao Chen stared at Elder Nan Gong and asked. Yes, not only did I recover from my injuries, but I also increased my cultivation level. Elder Nan Gong nodded and said frankly, just as he said, the great master didn't ask me to stay any longer, so I left just like that. However, I also owed him a favor. At that time, I promised him that if he needed my help, he could contact me at any time. That's why I met you, exalted immortal Xiao. Naturally, Xiao Chen knew what happened after that. He thought for a while and asked again, oh, the great master and the young master, what did they look like? Do you know their names? Exalted immortal Xiao, this is too difficult for me. Elder Nangong's face fell and he said helplessly, I was seriously injured at that time, so my consciousness was completely muddled. I didn't even see the great master's face clearly. As for the young master, although I saw him once, his face seemed to be injured. Other than his eyes, his entire face was covered with gauze, so I didn't know what he looked like. As for their names, I didn't ask. What Elder Nangong said was the truth. Back then, he was surrounded and attacked. Although he escaped, his life was in danger and he was unconscious most of the time. After he was saved, Elder Nangong was taken care of by the great master's subordinates. After he recovered, he left on his own. His conversations with the great master were also passed on through his subordinates. He didn't have a deep relationship with the great master. Forget it. You don't seem to know anything. Even if you remember, you probably won't be able to explain. Xiao Chen waved his hand and didn't want to continue asking about this. He thought for a while and asked in his sea of consciousness, by the way, Elder Heaven Ancestor, where is the specific location of the mystic realm you mentioned? Nangong is also here, so I can ask him about the route. That's hard to say. It's been a few thousand years since then. The names of the places are different from before, so it's even more difficult to find the way. Elder Heaven Ancestor's answer disappointed Xiao Chen, but he didn't give up. He continued to ask, what was the name of the place? Maybe I can ask Nangong and he'll know. Oh. That place is called Blue Sky Valley. Elder Heaven Ancestor's tone was very solemn. The entire valley is filled with poisonous fog. There are many rare spiritual beasts living there. Those spiritual beasts are extremely intelligent and don't fear the poisonous fog at all. Some even use the poisonous fog to cultivate themselves and are very powerful. Xiao Chen nodded slightly and looked up at Elder Nangong, who was standing there with a smile on his face. He pretended to say casually, by the way. You should have heard of Blue Sky Valley, right? I plan to go to that place to take a look in a few days. Do you know how to get there from Yaoxian County? Blue Sky Valley? Elder Nangong frowned and repeated. He looked a little confused. Chapter 1484. Elder Nangong frowned and thought for a long time. He shook his head and said, I'm sorry, Immortal Xiao, I don't think I've heard of this place. However, there is a place called the Jade Green Demonic Valley. Is it the place you're looking for? Where is this Jade Green Demonic Valley? Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows and asked calmly. I'm not too sure about the exact location. I only know that it should be to the east of Yaoxian County. Elder Nangong scratched his head and added, I heard that it is shrouded in poisonous gas all year round. It is unpredictable and very dangerous. If you go there, you must be careful. The Jade Green Demonic Valley had a rather terrifying reputation in the world of cultivation. When Elder Nangong heard Xiao Chen's question, he couldn't help but feel puzzled. He didn't know what Xiao Chen's purpose was. However, he didn't dare to ask too much and could only remind Xiao Chen indirectly. Yes, I will. Xiao Chen nodded indifferently. He thought that the names of the Jade Green Demonic Valley and the Jade Green Demonic Valley were somewhat similar. They were probably the same place. It was just that the names had changed over time. When he was about to send the guest off, Xiao Chen suddenly thought of something. He opened his mouth and told Elder Nangong, oh yes, I have my own things to do recently. I may not go to Lucian County in a short period of time. When your injuries have healed, take some time to help me take care of the Burning Sky faction. When I'm done with everything, you'll naturally get your share of the benefits. Look at what you're saying. What benefits? You're treating me like an outsider. It's my greatest honor to be able to help you. Elder Nangong immediately patted his chest and agreed without hesitation. That's enough for you to say, Xiao Chen smiled and waved his hand, I have nothing else to ask. You may leave. When Elder Nangong heard what Xiao Chen said, he first heaved a sigh of relief and took a step back. Suddenly, a look of hesitation appeared on his face and he hesitated to leave the room. Why? Did you think of something else to tell me? Xiao Chen looked at Nangong's expression and raised his eyebrows. Hongzhu, who had been sitting to the side, basking in the sun and enjoying the scenery, thought that Nangong was really going to leave. In the end, he couldn't help glaring at him again, thinking that this guy really doesn't know what's good for him. He doesn't care about the feelings of others at all. Elder Nangong naturally did not know what Hongzhu was thinking. He bowed slightly and asked tentatively at Shao Qin, Supreme Immortal Shao, are you really going to the Jade Green Demon Valley? Seeing Shao Qin nod his head, Elder Nangong said sincerely, may I ask what your current strength is? It's not that I'm trying to scare you, but that place isn't a joke. You could lose your life at any time. I suggest that you think about it carefully before you go. Shao Qin smiled faintly. He also knew that Elder Nangong actually wanted to know his strength. However, he did not mind shocking this guy a little. He activated his mental cultivation method and revealed his opening mountain stage level 2 cultivation. Shao Chen's mental cultivation method was imparted to him by the Elder Heaven Ancestor, and he cultivated it in reverse. Originally, it was more orthodox than ordinary cultivators, and his strength was also slightly higher than ordinary cultivators. Therefore, in Elder Nangong's eyes, Supreme Immortal Shao was currently an expert of the opening mountain stage level 4 or 5, and there were faint signs that he was about to break through. With a plop, Elder Nangong, who was shocked, directly fell to the ground. His face was full of shock. How did this guy level up so quickly? Could it be that there was a shortcut? Supreme Immortal Shao, I remember, weren't you still at the opening mountain stage level 1 a few days ago? Elder Nangong could not even speak clearly. He stuttered and asked, how did you suddenly rise to the opening mountain stage level 5? Oh, what's so great about that? When I fought with you for the first time, I was not at the opening mountain stage yet. Why didn't you feel that it was strange? Shao Qin smiled at Elder Nangong and raised his eyebrows. Not only did he not answer his question directly, but he also deliberately kept him in suspense. Hiss, Elder Nangong then recalled the previous situation and could not help but gasp. With a bitter face, he begged, Supreme Immortal, of course I felt that it was strange. Now I'm in a state of confusion. I'll have to trouble you, old man, to explain to me. Seeing Exalted Immortal Shao level up like a rocket, Elder Nangong was tormented by his thirst for knowledge. But seeing how this guy was teasing him again, Elder Nangong wanted to cry. Yet, he couldn't do anything to him. He could only lower his voice and beg. Immortal Shao, you're the Exalted Immortal. Seeing that Elder Nangong's face was full of desire, and his eyes were almost red, Shao Qin then said nonchalantly, what's so great about the opening mountain stage? Actually, my original strength had already reached the earth opening stage. However, because I was careless and suffered some minor injuries, my strength dropped. Now, I'm just slowly recovering. Otherwise, do you think you could have taken advantage of me back then? Earth opening stage. Elder Nangong was already scared out of his wits. He thought to himself, luckily, the first time we fought, Supreme Immortal Shao had not yet recovered his strength and was only at the peak of the profound ascension stage. In addition, I had a magic treasure to protect myself. Otherwise, I would have definitely been killed at that time. It seemed that Supreme Immortal Shao must be the disciple of some hidden expert, and it was rare for him to come out to gain experience. After all, as far as I know, other sects have never heard of such a young earth opening stage expert. Thinking up to this point, Elder Nangong suddenly rolled his eyes and revealed a sneaky smile. He tried to keep his voice calm and said, that Supreme Immortal Shao, didn't you just ask me to take care of the Burning Sky faction? This time, Shao Qin really did not know how to react. Weren't they just talking about the problem of levels? Why did they suddenly return to the topic of the Burning Sky faction? Yes. What's wrong? Shao Qin replied casually, did you suddenly change your mind and don't want to take care of them anymore? No, how is that possible? Elder Nangong shook his head like a rattle drum. Then, he used a voice that he thought was the most sincere to explain, taking care of the Burning Sky faction is definitely not a problem. It's just that I suddenly thought of a situation. Since I want to take care of them, I must definitely have a good reason to do so. Otherwise, if I go there rashly, others will think that I am going to monitor them. At this time, Xiaochen had already guessed Elder Nangong's intention. He simply did not reply and only looked at him with a smile that was not a smile. Seeing the expression of Supreme Immortal Xiao, Elder Nangong could only chuckle and said shamelessly, "So, I want to ask Supreme Immortal if you are still accepting disciples? This way, as a junior brother, I can go to the Burning Sky faction and explain to the 2 disciples that you have accepted there. Don't you think so?" Back then, Elder Nangong was still a little puzzled. Why would Gong Xiaoxi and Gong Ruidong, who were from the Burning Sky faction, be willing to accept an outsider like Xiaochen as their master? Now, he understood everything. Chapter 1485. Elder Nangong understood that exalted Immortal Xiao must have an incomparably powerful backer. Otherwise, who would be willing to become a disciple of a yellow-haired brat? Pfft. Hongzhu had just drunk a mouthful of water, but upon hearing Elder Nangong's words, he spat it all out. He couldn't help but look at Elder Nangong with a strange expression. He couldn't figure out how this old man could have the face to say such shameless words. Cough, cough, all right then. Xiaochen had already guessed Elder Nangong's intentions, so he wasn't too surprised. Clearing his throat, he said, "This exalted immortal will temporarily accept you as an in-name disciple." Ah. In-name disciple? Elder Nangong was about to rejoice when he heard the first half of Xiao Chen's sentence, but when he heard that Xiao Chen would only accept him as an in-name disciple, his excitement was immediately extinguished. One had to know that in-name disciple was just a title. It wasn't a true disciple of the sect. Instead, one could be kicked out of the sect at any time. And, from now on, it will depend on your performance. If you can satisfy me, I will turn you into an official disciple. At that time, I might even be able to guide you on the path of cultivation. Xiaochen nodded very naturally. In any case, he had already accepted 2 disciples, so it didn't matter if he accepted one more. Moreover, Elder Nangong had the backing of the Profound Cloud sect, so it would be much more convenient to do things. As for accepting Elder Nangong as an in-name disciple, it was because Xiao Chen was afraid that if he directly accepted him as a disciple, Elder Nangong wouldn't be attentive enough when taking care of the Burning Sky sect. If he left a thought for him, perhaps it would have a miraculous effect. Ha 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 ha. Thank you, exalted Immortal Xiao. No, thank you, Master, for your kindness. Hearing Xiao Chen's promise, Elder Nangong's mood immediately brightened up. Beaming with joy, he patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, from today onwards, Burning Sky sect will be left to me. As long as I am alive, I will not allow anyone to touch even a single hair of their sect." Hongzhu didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he rolled his eyes at Elder Nangong. This guy was really crazy with joy. Who would use a single hair to describe a sect? Wasn't he afraid of making others laugh their heads off? Elder Nangong did not notice at all. He solemnly bowed to Xiao Chen to acknowledge him as his master. Then, he said respectfully, "Then I'll take my leave first. I'll go back and brew the medicine. I won't disturb your rest." After receiving Xiao Chen's acknowledgement, Elder Nangong went back to his room happily. His master was really too powerful. Not only could he heal old wounds, he could even completely heal broken meridians, but his own strength was also frighteningly high. This time, Master was had Nan Yanggong had thought of. As he thought about it, Elder Nangong's thoughts floated even more. He thought that if he could get to know that hidden master through his master, as long as there was a little bit of connection, the status of the Profound Cloud sect would definitely rise. It wouldn't be long before they could suppress the Huanshan Pavilion and become the #1 sect in the cultivation world. Elder Nangong seemed to be able to see the blueprint of the future. He was laughing so hard in his room that his eyebrows could barely be seen. As he prepared the medicine, he hummed a little tune, as happy as a child. Xiao Chen didn't think as much as Elder Nangong. After sending off Elder Nan Gong, he and Hong Zhu began to pack up their belongings, preparing to leave Yaoxian province and head east. They planned to inquire about the location of the dark green demonic valley as they traveled. Although the Elder Heaven ancestor hadn't said what treasures he had hidden in there, Shao Qun still wanted to obtain those things as soon as possible under the great temptation of treasures. That way, he would be able to increase his own strength. Fortunately, he would have a stronger support in the process of searching for people. After 2 days of recuperation, Elder Nan Gong was surprised to find that he had completely recovered. Not only did all the meridians in his body that had been broken by Shao Qun completely recover, even the small injuries and pains that he had suffered when he was cultivating in the past were completely healed. His strength had also returned to its previous level. Although he was happy, Elder Nan Gong still had some doubts. According to his disciples' feedback, Gong Ruidong seemed to have spent half a month from the beginning of his treatment to the point where he could walk. Why did it only take him 2 days? After thinking about it, Elder Nan Gong could only think that it was because his injuries were new and not old wounds like Gong Ruidong's. Therefore, his recovery would be faster. No matter what, he had already fully recovered. Feeling the abundant vitality in his body, Elder Nan Gong was filled with even more admiration towards exalted immortal Shao. There was no longer a trace of doubt, and he was dead set on becoming exalted immortal Zhao's disciple. However, when he thought of this, Elder Nan Gong felt a little guilty. He felt that he was only a nominal disciple now. It was really not very safe. What if Shao Qun returned and refused to acknowledge him? Wouldn't it be like drawing water with a sieve? After pondering for a long time, Elder Nan Gong decided to go to Burning Sky faction personally and think of a way to build a good relationship with big senior brother Gong Shaoxi and second senior brother Gong Ruidong. In this way, when Shao Qun returned, he could ask his 2 senior brothers to put in a few good words for him. Maybe Shao Qun would agree to let him become an official disciple. After making up his mind, Elder Nan Gong could no longer sit still. He rushed back to the faction overnight and picked a few of his close subordinates. He ordered them to prepare all kinds of treasures, as well as a number of spiritual crystals and magical equipment as a greeting gift. Then, he rushed towards Lucian County without stopping. Early the next morning, in the plaza of the Burning Sky faction, Gong Shaoxi and Gong Ruidong were teaching the sect's disciples how to cultivate. The 2 of them would occasionally whisper to each other, discussing how to quickly increase their strength. When the group of people was in full swing, they heard footsteps coming from afar. A guard who was guarding the door ran over in a panic. Grand Elder, Deacon Elder. Not good. The guard was out of breath from running. His face looked a little pale. It was obvious that he was quite frightened. When he spoke, he was panting. What's going on? Why are you so impatient? Let's talk this out. Gong Ruidong frowned and reprimanded with some dissatisfaction. It's Elder Nan Gong from Xianyun sect again. The guard's voice was a little shaky. This time, he brought a group of people with him. He specially asked for the 2 of you. He said that he has something important to discuss with you. Nan Gong? Why is he here again? Gong Shaoxi and Gong Ruidong looked at each other and muttered in confusion. Chapter 1486. Gong Shaoxi thought that Elder Nan Gong had come to provoke them again, but exalted immortal Shao was not in the sect, and he and his father could not deal with him alone. Not to mention Duan Suqing, he couldn't even stand up to one of his fingers. Gong Ruidong's expression was a bit ugly, because he saw a few people quickly walking towards him, and the one leading them was Elder Nan Gong. His mind was filled with questions. Wasn't this guy taken away by exalted immortal Shao? Why did he come back by himself? Moreover, looking at the way he walked over, it seemed that even his injuries had recovered. What was going on? Did something happen to exalted immortal Shao? The more Gong Ruidong thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly ordered the disciples to be on full alert. For a moment, everyone was as if they were facing a great enemy, and could not be bothered with cultivation anymore. They all stood in a few rows, staring at the approaching group of people. Although the disciples standing in the back did not hear what Gong Ruidong said, they were keenly aware that the atmosphere was not right. A few timid disciples looked at each other for a while, and decided to sneak away to inform Duan Suching. Ha ha ha, I trust you two have been well since we last met? How have you been recently? Gong Ruidong and Gong Shaoxi heard Elder Nangong's hearty laughter coming from afar, and for a moment, they were a bit confused. The last time this guy came, he did not seem to be this enthusiastic. Just as the two of them were feeling puzzled, Elder Nangong had already arrived in front of everyone with a smile. He first turned around and signaled the disciples to put down all the big and small bags of gifts. Elder Nangong, what do you mean by this? What are these things? Gong Shaoxi was the first to lose his cool, and asked. Calm down, you two. Elder Nangong turned around with a face full of smiles, and said to the two of them, these are just a small token of my appreciation. There isn't anything good, just some natural treasures and spirit crystals. I hope that the two of you can look at this old man's sincerity and let bygones be bygones, and get along well with each other from now on. Elder Nangong, I don't quite understand what you mean. Looking at the big wooden boxes that were neatly placed not far away, Gong Ruidong asked with slight confusion, I wonder why you are here today? There doesn't seem to be any friendship between us, right? Gong Ruidong, who was originally on high alert, was now at a loss. What was this guy trying to do? Why did he send something over for no reason? Could it be that he wanted to play some tricks again? It seems like Senior Gong has not forgiven me. Previously, I have indeed offended you a lot, willfully and rashly did many wrong things, and caused a lot of trouble for the Burning Sky faction. Elder Nangong said with an ashamed expression. Then, he quickly stepped forward and grabbed Gong Shaoxi and Gong Ruidong's hands. The two of them were startled. They thought that Elder Nangong was going to launch a sneak attack. They released their essence and covered their bodies with it, preparing to counterattack at any moment. But before the two of them could make a move, Elder Nangong suddenly bowed to them and sincerely apologized. Sigh, senior brothers, I hope you two can be magnanimous and not bicker with me, okay? This time, junior brother has specially brought a gift to apologize, hoping to get the two senior brothers' forgiveness. This. Gong Ruidong was already dumbfounded. He couldn't figure out what was wrong with Elder Nangong. He subconsciously turned to look at Gong Shaoxi and found that he was also staring blankly at Elder Nangong. He was stunned on the spot and couldn't say a word for a long time. At this moment, Duan Suching just happened to rush over with the rest of the disciples, ready to support Gong Ruidong and the others. But when he saw the respectful appearance of Elder Nangong on the square, and the way he bowed his head to Gong Shaoxi and Gong Ruidong, his mind was a little confused. Duan Suching rubbed his eyes and found that he wasn't seeing things. The scene in front of him was indeed real. He couldn't help but think to himself, how did this old guy become mentally ill after being caught by Upper Immortal Shao? He actually did such an unimaginable thing. Could it be that when he went back to heal, he accidentally went mad? Hey! Have you been beaten silly by my master, Exalted Immortal Shao? Otherwise, why would you suddenly come over to apologize? After a long silence, Gong Shaoxi finally couldn't help but ask. Gong Shaoxi had always been straightforward, and he saw that Elder Nangong seemed to be quite sincere and didn't look like he was here to cause trouble, so he let his guard down a little. Hee, it's like this. Master Upper Immortal Shao has successfully cured me. You see, there are no injuries on my body at all. Even my legs and feet are much more agile than before. Speaking of this, Elder Nangong was even more delighted. In order to prove that he wasn't lying, he specially jumped twice on the spot and stretched his muscles. He looked a little funny in front of the crowd. Then why do you call my father and me senior brother? You didn't join our Burning Sky faction. Gong Shaoxi looked up and down at the lively Elder Nangong. He remembered what he had just said and asked curiously. Gong Ruidong's eyes flashed. He had already captured the details in Elder Nangong's words. This fellow had just addressed Exalted Immortal Shao as his master. He knew what was going on the moment he heard it. This fellow had probably become exalted immortal Zhao's disciple. As expected, Elder Nan Gong smiled embarrassedly and said, "It's not that I joined the Burning Sky faction, but Upper Immortal Zhao saw that my talent is not bad, so he took me in as his third disciple. In the future, I will have to ask the two senior brothers to take care of little junior brother." "Oh. So that's how it is, I was wondering." Gong Xiaoxi finally understood. Elder Nan Gong must have realized that Upper Immortal Zhao Master was very strong, so he shamelessly wanted to be his disciple. Upper Immortal Zhao Master must have been annoyed by Elder Nan Gong's pestering and simply agreed. Then, he sent this guy to Burning Sky faction to report. After understanding the whole story, Gong Xiaoxi finally relaxed and nodded. He puffed out his chest and said proudly, "All right then. Since Upper Immortal Zhao Master said so, then we will naturally recognize you as our junior brother. From now on, I am the eldest senior brother. You have to listen to me in everything. This is your second senior brother, who is also my biological father. Sometimes, I have to listen to him. You are the youngest, so you have to listen to him even more. Do you understand?" Gong Ruidong, who was standing at the side, also raised his eyelids and looked at Elder Nan Gong. He patted him on the shoulder with great vigor and taught him sincerely, "This junior brother of yours is not bad. He knows to admit his mistakes and change. That's good. Since we are all Upper Immortal Zhao Master's disciples, and you have come to apologize so sincerely, we are not unreasonable people. We will not argue with you about what happened before. Be a good person in the future." You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.